to serve.
Patricia Gibson.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. We know that the funding formula for police forces in England and Wales is being consulted upon by the UK Government as it seeks to simplify funding arrangements for this service. And we also know that any changes in the funding arrangements have been delayed until 2016-17. Indeed, this was very eloquently set out for us by the member for Leicester East. But because of Barnett consequentials, which are so important for funding services across the UK, I'd like to say a few words today about policing in Scotland. As many in this House will be aware, the SNP Scottish Government has carried out a reorganisation of policing in Scotland when 8 area forces were merged into a unitary force in 2013. And now the Scottish Government funds policing directly through the Scottish Police Authority. And it's worth pointing out that this had cross-party support, although that support was subsequently withdrawn by the Lib Dems. Perhaps that's the nature of being a Lib Dem. However, if I may be permitted to point out, Mr Deputy Speaker, in Scotland, despite this major reform being implemented by the Scottish Government and delivering significant savings, the Scottish Government has continued to protect its commitment to 1,000 additional police officers, all in the teeth of harsh Westminster cuts. There's no doubt in Scotland that we're having to make some very hard decisions about the police budget, but the SNP Scottish Government, but the recent budget, the police revenue budget has been protected in real terms in every year of the next Parliament, a boost of 100 million between 2016 and 2021. However, it has to be said, some of the hard decisions the Scottish Government is having to make is a direct consequence of the UK Government refusing to give Police Scotland the same VAT status as every other police authority in the United Kingdom. The same applies to the Fire and Rescue Service in Scotland, and I see somebody chuntering from a sedentary position, and if they do wish to intervene, I would be delighted to hear what they have to say. I will give way to the Honourable Gentleman.
Matter of fact is that the Scottish Government agreed to those VAT proposals.
What I would like to point out today, for the avoidance of any doubt, that although the Scottish Government was aware of this, it doesn't make it right. And the Scottish Government... No, let me finish my point. Let me finish my point before you start chuntering. The reason the Scottish Government agreed to this is because it had no choice. It is working within the constraints imposed upon it by Westminster. And I should say, Mr Speaker, I'm walking forward now, I should say, Mr Speaker, like so many other deals in Scotland, it is imposed by a UK Government that is detached from Scotland and neither understands nor cares about Scotland's public services. So, Mr Speaker, Mr Deputy Speaker, I shall leave the matter there. If you don't like giving fair funding formulas to Scotland, you had your chance in last September and you kicked and screamed to hold on to us. All we ask for in the light of that decision last September is fairness. We are, of course, Mr Deputy Speaker, a valued and equal partner. Well, let us be so. I have dealt with the point comprehensively. I have not ignored it.
Order. Look, if the Honourable Lady wishes to give way, she will give way. If she doesn't want to give way, we'll all have to respect it. Patricia Gibson.
Mr Deputy Speaker, I would simply add that holding an axe over someone's head and because they don't move away...
Point of order, Kevin Jones.
Mr Speaker, we are used to the breathtaking arrogance of the SNP in this place, but I'm sorry, I think it's completely wrong if a honourable gentleman or lady raises a point and which is clearly wrong, does not allow other honourable members to question that.
As you well know, for the numerous... I think I will deal with it, Mr Hartley. I think it might be easier if I do. As you well know, first of all, it's not a point of order. But if we were to rely on something that somebody believes not to be correct, we would never, ever get through a debate. Your view and a different view from the members will continue within this House. We won't always agree, and on this occasion, not a point of order for the Chair. No. Just say it. Just let's see if we can help. I want to progress the debate. I don't want it to deteriorate. Patricia Gibson.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I was simply going to add to that point that anyone in this chamber would think that a unique VAT charge on Scotland's police force and fire service, anybody would think, Mr. Speaker.
Can I just say to you, you don't bring the chair into the argument, because the chair's not going to rule on a debate. I'm here to chair the debate, not to make a decision on who's right and who's wrong. I'll let you continue with your speech. Patricia Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The Scottish Police Authority, uniquely in the United Kingdom, uniquely and therefore unfairly, is the only police authority, no thank you, in the entire UK. Can't keep that. I do want to progress beyond this point. Uniquely and therefore unfairly, the only police authority in the United Kingdom which cannot recover VAT and is liable, therefore, for a cost, an annual cost of £25 million, equivalent to almost the entire forecast savings gap. And it seems that the Treasury, and this is a very important point, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it seems that the Treasury based this decision on the fact that single services will be funded by central government. But the Treasury introduced a new section into the VAT Act to ensure central government-funded academy schools in England could recover VAT. So why not the same provision for the Scottish Police and Scottish Fire and Rescue Services? And I would say to the honourable gentleman, I'm asking for it now. Why do I mention all this, Mr. Deputy Speaker, apart from the fact that it's about fairness? I mention this because...
Can I just help? Just, Mr. Jones, it will be easier if I can hear what's being said. And obviously, I was hoping that you're going to come on next, and we don't want to spoil that, because I want to hear from you. Patricia Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I mention this today, apart from the unfairness issue, because today is a debate about managing budgets, and Scotland is being shortchanged by this unique VAT charge levied on its police and fire services, taking significant funds out of these important and hard-pressed budgets, and it's simply not fair. And the people of Scotland take a very dim view of this indeed, as well they should. Nevertheless, Mr. Deputy Speaker, despite budgetary pressures imposed by Westminster and Scotland, a real-term reduction in Scotland's budget of £1.5 billion, a 5.7% cut in the funding for day-to-day public services over the next 4 years as a result of the comprehensive spending review, despite all that, crime in Scotland is down at its lowest level in over 41 years. Violent crime down by 55% since 2006-07. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, I believe it was Benjamin Franklin who said that the only certainties in life were death and taxation. And he was certainly right about the first. But for multinational corporations in the UK under successive Westminster governments, he may have been proven a bit off the mark on the second. However, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there is another certainty in life which Mr. Franklin overlooked, and it's this. The one thing you may be sure that will not be debated during a Westminster debate on estimates is estimates. This issue, of course, about debating estimates may not exercise the minds of the general public, but I believe that's because it's not well known outside of this place how little scrutiny there is of the spending plans of respective departments. The scrutiny is negligible, and it has suited successive governments that it should be so. If the public knew just how inscrutable the process was, they would, I am sure, have something to say about it. And of course, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the supply estimates process is very, very technical, and that's how spending is approved by Parliament. But we must remember, in the course of this debate today, that during the evil debates, the Leader of the House noted the possibility of a review of this process, whilst at the same time seeming to be completely adamant that estimates already allows for affecting the Barnett consequentials. And I would simply say that the Procedure Committee on which I sit is currently reviewing the estimates process, and many very distinguished and learned experts, far more, Mr. Deputy Speaker, far more learned and distinguished than I, if you can believe that. And they have argued from all sides of the political spectrum that while discussing evil, that the estimates process is simply not fit for purpose. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if I could crave your indulgence for a little bit longer and point out that the way this House deals with the supply and estimates procedure is simply not sustainable. We need to have proper debate around the supply procedure to achieve clarity on Barnett consequentials. The scrutiny of the estimates process is simply not robust enough, and this Parliament has the least scrutinised spending arrangements in the Western world, in this so-called mother of parliaments. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if you permit me to again point out that the process is such that the procedures simply do not give MPs the full opportunity to scrutinise Barnett consequentials of England only or England and Wales only legislation, and that is required in a mature and healthy democracy. And it should be a consequence of evil that the supply process be reformed in the interest of this matter being a process of development. And that expression, process of development, is a direct quote from the Leader of this House, promised and envisaged on the 22nd of October 2015. And Mr. Speaker himself has said that he couldn't conceive of any bill that doesn't have direct Barnett consequentials, and that if there is such a bill, we Scottish members can take part in the estimates.
Can I just say, you did ask me to crave some indulgence, which I have, and I've been very good, but we do know that, unfortunately, and you answered your own question, and that was the Procedure Committee is the right vehicle in which to take this up. Unfortunately, today's debate's not, but I have allowed some indulgence, which I think was only fair, and what we do need to do is move back to the core of the debate. Patricia Gibson.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I take on board what you say, and I was just about having craved your indulgence and maximised the level of your patience that you've shown me very kindly. I was just about to return to the police funding formula. And I'd like to point out that any discussion of policing budgets in England must, in all fairness and justice, consider any effects and consequences for Scotland, not least the VAT issue, which is a running sore of injustice in Scotland. Our police in Scotland do an excellent job, but they must have a level playing field. And I ask all the members here today representing English and Welsh constituencies, as you consider police budgets, remember the inconvenient truth that the police in Scotland has a VAT ball and chain round its ankle, which picks money out of the pocket of the police budget to the tune of £25 million every year, which no other police authority in the United Kingdom has to contend with. And saying that Scotland accepted this is simply not good enough. Any reasonable-minded person would demand that this stop, and it should stop now. Scotland is supposed to be, after all, a valued and equal partner in this union, and there is nothing equal about this VAT burden, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Kevan Jones.